Some people notice things before anyone else even reacts. A change in tone, a shift in behavior, a silence that feels different. Welcome to Relaxing Facts Studio, where we break down hidden layers of human behavior in a calm documentary style. In this episode, we explore the psychology behind INFJ traits, not as mystery, but as a pattern-based way of processing the world. From silent intuition to deep emotional awareness, and the ability to recognize structure in human behavior before it becomes obvious. What looks like intuition is often information the mind has already organized beneath awareness. Stay with us as we break down how this system works, why it feels accurate, and what it reveals about how some minds interpret reality in real time. People often notice it in small moments first. An INFJ hears a casual comment, watches a repeated behavior, or remembers a detail everyone else ignored, then quietly arrives at a conclusion long before anyone around them does. It can look mysterious, but much of what gets labeled INFJ intuition operates less like magic and more like hidden logic running below conscious awareness. That hidden logic usually starts with pattern detection. Instead of analyzing one isolated event, INFJs tend to absorb scattered information across time. Tone changes, emotional reactions, inconsistencies, long-term behavior. The brain naturally performs this kind of predictive processing. It builds internal models from repeated input. INFJs often trust these models early, sometimes before they can explain where the conclusion came from. That early certainty creates a strange communication problem. The answer arrives first. The explanation arrives later. By the time an INFJ says, "Something feels off," their mind may already have connected dozens of subtle signals into one internal framework. The difficulty is translating a fast subconscious synthesis into a slow, step-by-step explanation another person can verify. But not every strong feeling is accurate intuition. Fear can imitate insight surprisingly well. Anxiety also searches for patterns, except it tends to prioritize threat, worst-case scenarios, and emotional projection. The difference often appears in consistency. Genuine intuition usually grows from repeated observations and becomes clearer over time. Anxiety often becomes louder, more urgent, and less connected to observable evidence. That distinction matters because INFJ insight becomes most reliable when it stays grounded in reality. Reading patterns can be a powerful strength. Testing those patterns against facts, behavior, and direct communication is what turns hidden logic into useful understanding. It rarely begins with one dramatic argument. An INFJ may stay patient through repeated disappointments, overlooked boundaries, or emotional imbalance long after other people would openly confront the problem. From the outside, everything can appear stable. Underneath, an internal record is quietly forming, built from accumulated trust violations rather than one isolated event. That accumulation changes something important over time. Deep emotional investment slowly shifts into emotional exhaustion. INFJs often give people multiple chances because they focus on context, intentions, and long-term potential. But once the internal threshold breaks, the emotional equation changes fast. The person who once analyzed, empathized, and tried to repair the connection may suddenly stop reaching at all. That sudden withdrawal is part of why the INFJ door slam feels so final. Instead of entering prolonged conflict, repeated explanations, or emotionally draining cycles, many INFJs prefer controlled distance. Silence can become a form of closure. Not because conflict is impossible, but because continued access may feel psychologically more costly than separation. The preference for cutoff over confrontation usually reflects an internal calculation about emotional sustainability. If conversations repeatedly produce the same outcome, an INFJ may conclude that further discussion will not create meaningful change. By that point, the decision often feels less emotional than practical. The relationship no longer feels repairable inside their internal model. But final decisions do not always create immediate peace. Relief often appears first because constant emotional strain finally stops. Then more complicated reactions can follow: guilt, doubt, second-guessing, or quiet grief over what the relationship once represented. Ending access may protect emotional stability, yet INFJs frequently continue processing the meaning of that choice long after the outward separation is complete. That complexity explains why the door slam is often misunderstood. It can look impulsive from the outside. In many cases, it is the visible endpoint of a long invisible process that started much earlier than anyone realized. A long conversation, a crowded room, or even a positive social event can leave some INFJs feeling unexpectedly drained. It is not always about shyness or disliking people. Much of the fatigue comes from continuous people processing, tracking emotional tone, interpreting reactions, adjusting communication, and mentally analyzing social dynamics in real time. That constant processing creates a strong need for recovery space. Alone time often functions as an internal reset system. Without incoming conversations, social expectations, or emotional noise, INFJs can reorganize thoughts, sort feelings, and reconnect with their own perspective. The quiet matters. It gives the mind room to separate external input from internal understanding. That separation also supports long-term thinking. During solitude, many INFJs naturally shift into reflection, creative problem-solving, or future planning. Ideas that felt fragmented during social interaction may suddenly organize into a clear pattern. The brain's default mode network, associated with introspection and internal simulation, becomes more active during restful inward attention. For INFJs, quiet time can become a working environment for insight. But not all isolation serves the same purpose. Healthy solitude usually restores energy, increases clarity, and strengthens emotional balance. Emotional withdrawal tends to do the opposite. Instead of creating perspective, it narrows it. Avoidance can disguise itself as recovery when someone begins using isolation to escape difficult conversations, uncertainty, or unresolved emotional stress. That distinction matters because solitude is often one of the INFJ's strongest psychological tools. Used well, it supports creativity, emotional regulation, and long-range vision. Used unconsciously, it can slowly disconnect a person from support, feedback, and real-world relationships. The goal is not endless isolation. It is creating enough quiet space to think clearly without disappearing into it. A room can change before anyone says a word. An INFJ often notices the shift through subtle cues, conversational energy, facial tension, humor style, social hierarchy, or what people seem careful not to mention. The adjustment begins quickly. Before the interaction fully settles, they may already be mapping the emotional atmosphere and unspoken rules of the environment. That rapid social reading naturally affects communication style. Around analytical people, an INFJ might sound more structured and restrained. Around emotionally expressive personalities, they may become warmer, lighter, or more flexible in tone. The changes are usually subtle. Language, pacing, humor, and energy levels quietly adapt to match the surrounding social system. That flexibility can be highly effective in relationships, teamwork, and conflict management. Social psychology describes similar behavior through concepts like emotional attunement and behavioral mirroring. People often trust individuals who communicate in familiar emotional rhythms. INFJs may do this almost automatically, not as deliberate performance, but as an instinctive way of maintaining connection and reducing interpersonal friction. But constant adaptation carries hidden psychological costs. When someone repeatedly adjusts to external expectations, personal preferences can become harder to identify. Over time, emotional fatigue may develop. Some INFJs begin wondering which version of themselves is authentic and which version simply learned how to fit the room. That tension becomes more noticeable when adaptation turns into self-erasure. Healthy flexibility allows someone to adjust communication without abandoning core values, boundaries, or honest self-expression. Unhealthy adaptation prioritizes harmony so completely that personal needs disappear from the equation. The difference matters because the INFJ chameleon effect is not inherently a weakness. Reading a room is a powerful interpersonal skill. The challenge is keeping that skill connected to a stable internal identity. Adapting socially can build trust and understanding. Maintaining clear boundaries is what prevents empathy from quietly replacing authenticity. A quiet space can still feel loud. An INFJ may walk into a room where nothing obvious is happening, yet sense tension almost immediately. It shows up in small details first: shorter responses, reduced eye contact, uneven laughter, or a shift in physical spacing between people. These signals combine into a readable emotional pattern before anyone directly acknowledges it. That early detection comes from continuous social scanning. The mind tracks micro behaviors and subtle changes in tone, then integrates them into a broader emotional picture. In psychology, this aligns with heightened sensitivity to nonverbal cues and context-based inference. The brain is not feeling energy, in a mystical sense, but processing a high volume of social data in real time and forming rapid conclusions. That processing can directly influence mood. When someone is surrounded by stress, conflict, or emotional intensity, their nervous system often responds through emotional contagion. a well-documented phenomenon where emotional states spread between individuals in close proximity. For INFJs, who tend to stay highly attuned to others, this effect can feel especially strong and immediate. The challenge appears when internal emotion and absorbed emotion start to overlap. A feeling of discomfort might originate in the environment, not the self. But without clear separation, the boundary between what I sense and what I feel personally becomes less distinct. That confusion can lead to emotional overload or unnecessary self-analysis. Protecting that boundary often comes down to deliberate mental separation. Some people use grounding techniques, short breaks from stimulation, or simple internal labeling like identifying whether a feeling is self-generated or externally influenced. The goal is not to shut off empathy. It is to prevent emotional input from becoming indistinguishable from personal state. When that boundary is maintained, emotional awareness becomes an asset rather than a burden. It allows clearer understanding of group dynamics, healthier interaction choices, and more accurate interpretation of social environments without losing internal stability. A conversation often reveals more than its words. An INFJ may notice a mismatch between what someone says and how they say it, a confident statement delivered with hesitation, or a friendly tone paired with guarded posture. These small inconsistencies accumulate quickly into a broader behavioral picture that feels unusually coherent. That coherence comes from pattern recognition across time. Instead of evaluating one moment, the mind compares current behavior with previous interactions. In cognitive terms, this relies on predictive modeling, the brain's tendency to forecast future behavior based on repeated input. When patterns repeat, the forecast becomes more precise, even before anything is explicitly confirmed. That is why INFJs sometimes appear to predict relationship trajectories early. If communication patterns show cycles of avoidance, inconsistency, or emotional withdrawal, the long-term direction can become visible sooner than others notice. It is not certainty. It is probability based on observed repetition. The system updates continuously as new behavior appears. But accurate reading requires discipline. The same pattern detection system can drift into assumption if it is not anchored in evidence. Projection happens when the mind fills gaps with expectation rather than observation. Confirmation bias can reinforce a narrative by highlighting matching details while ignoring contradictions. Both can distort perception if unchecked. This is where self-correction becomes important. Healthy social insight depends on revisiting interpretations, testing conclusions through direct communication, and allowing room for error. Behavioral science consistently shows that human judgment improves when assumptions are verified against real feedback rather than internal certainty alone. When balanced properly, this form of social perception becomes a practical tool. It supports clearer decision-making in relationships, better judgment in teamwork, and more effective conflict navigation. The strength is not just in reading people quickly, but in refining those readings over time until intuition and evidence begin to align. Every layer of INFJ psychology points back to one core idea: perception shaped by deep internal pattern recognition. What looks like intuition is often a refined system of observation, memory, and emotional analysis working beneath awareness. When understood clearly, these traits become tools for insight, not confusion. Thank you for watching this episode. If you are not already subscribed to Relaxing Facts Studio, consider subscribing to stay connected with more deep documentary content like this. Like the video, share it on your social media, and help it reach a wider audience. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Your perspective matters and helps shape future episodes. Your support is essential to this channel's growth and continuity.